we're doing this without a safety net, as I said earlier. So what I had mentioned before was that we were going to start out with kind of profiling one of the merchants, which is Vinny Iovine, and we've got some images that we wanted to show of Iovine's produce market. And then after we scroll through those images, I'd like Vinny to say a little bit about his history with the market, which dates back to 1993.
89.
89, right. And so
November 19th of 89.
Yeah. So maybe you could start talking about it, but when the images come on, we'll just take a minute to look at them.
1 second, and Vinny, if you could also just speak up.
Yeah, speak up a little bit
You
more.
got it, no problem.
Okay.
1 second. Get these photos.
So you might tell us a little bit about how you got to the market in 89, what led up to that.
Now, before the photos
You
got
can,
taken?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, because the photos are not up yet, but the video is.
So
the audio is.
So I used to, as a kid, after high school, I would go downtown every day and I would work at a court reporting agency.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my family worked there, and I would deliver transcripts around town. I ended up, wanted to be a carpenter though. Got awards in high school for carpentry, the whole bit. That's what I wanted to do. And I got a phone call one day at the court reporting firm. They needed something done. I said, I can do this for you. I ended up switching careers. I was working there for quite a while. And the guy who owned it, Ray DeSimone, wanted to get into another type business. And he wanted to get into the produce business. He bought Rowe & Sons. That was in 1989. And he said, I would love you to go over and work. And I said, that's fine. I said, but I don't know anything about produce, you know? And so November 19th, 1989, my very first day, I walk in and it was so overwhelming, the market. You know, to me, it's like you didn't know where everything was. And I'm walking down the one vegetable aisle and first person walks up to me and says, excuse me, do you have any cilantro? And I said, let me find out what that is and I'll let you know. So like I literally was that green, had no idea.
No pun intended, that green.
That green, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, learned on the fly from there. So it was really a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. So can you say a little bit more about how you started bringing your family in? I think you started out with your brother, or you brought your brother in. And...
So like I said, I got there in 89 and realized how big of an operation it was. Mm-hmm. And, we still had the Rose were there working with us and teaching me. I was, doing other work with them, learning how to buy and everything. And I knew I would need help. So my brother, Jimmy, I would work with him at a hot dog cart and his hot dog cart at 15th and Vine. And
we're seeing Jimmy right now.
Yep, you're seeing
there he is,
Jimmy.
yeah.
And I look a lot skinnier in that picture. We can ignore that part. But I said, Jim, listen, I'm over here at the Reading Terminal. Would you like to get out of the cold and come here? And he goes, in a second. And that's how it all started. He literally within 2 weeks was by my side. And, we've been a great team ever since. But we've not just, it's just not me and my brother. I mean, we literally, like right now, my oldest sister comes in 2 days a week. She's going to be 70. She helps me out with the bookwork. Mm-hmm. She used to change my diapers as well, by the way, just so everyone knows. Because I'm the youngest out of 10. If I just assume everybody knows that, because that's what our story is always that way.
Yeah.
Is that Teresa?
You notice her
That's
in the
Susie.
photo?
Oh, Susie.
Susie she's the blue shirt, like to the.
Oh, I see her.
There.
Mm-hmm.
That picture right there was for my mother's birthday. That's at Molly Malloy's. That's a cool
Which you
little
haven't
story.
let us into, Molly Malloy's yet. Yeah.
Just because of that picture is up, a great story about how we got to the name of Molly Malloy's. It's actually my mother's maiden name. And, my brother and I, once we took over the beer garden, we were trying to figure out a good name for it. And another cool story about Tommy Dinnick and how everyone hung there, I was over talking to Tommy, and who I call Dad, basically, still do. And I said, Tom, we're trying to think of a name. And he goes, Vinny. And he says, you got to name it after your mother, Molly Malloy. I was like, oh my God, Tom, that's right. I go back to the office, say to Jimmy. Jimmy's like, that's it. That's the name. That's all there is to it. But that story right there in itself just tells you how close even all the merchants are. You know what I mean? And that he knew my mother's maiden name, and you know what I mean? That it's
I never knew it was Tommy's idea.
100%
Yeah,
Tommy's
that's
idea.
great.
Like he named the bar, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And that raises another issue, which is relationships among the merchants. You've got merchants of every ethnicity. You've got people of Irish backgrounds and Italian backgrounds and Jewish backgrounds and Asians and on and on and on,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania Dutch people. So I wonder if perhaps, Paul, you could talk a little bit about that ethnic diversity in the market and those sort of friendship groups. I've heard about Tommy DeNick and how I guess it was mostly Italians who would hang out in the morning and get coffee.
No, everybody who wanted to walked up. But Tommy, I mean, Paul, you would join us in the
Oh,
morning
yeah.
sometimes.
Yep.
You
I remember Harry Oakes used to sit with a ceramic coffee cup, but there was not coffee in that cup. And this would be in the morning. He would have a belt in the morning to get his day started.
I never forget. I was in the Inquirer. Picture comes out. It's me, Tommy, and Harry sitting at a table in center court, and they were basically saying how Harry has a little bit of hit right there.
Right.
And I was like, I don't drink, like it wasn't me, but no, that one, oh my God, those days I miss Harry so much. I mean, he was another character in himself,
Yeah, and in 2003, I think it was, we worked with Councilman DeChico to rename Filbert Street Harry Oakes Way.
That's right.
And we had a dedication ceremony. It was a beautiful day in February, believe it or not, sunny and unseasonably warm. And Lynn Abraham, the district attorney, came and was the keynote speaker. And we took the wraps off the Harry Oakes Way signs, and they're still up there. Harry Oakes is still fondly remembered all these years later.
Yeah. What was it about Harry that made a mark?
Well, one thing I know he was really instrumental in is fighting for the market's survival during the convention center construction.
Right.
Because that was very disruptive.
It
right?
was. I got there as it was starting, but to get it to the point of, they actually wanted to close the market down. And Harry was instrumental, or the lead, to fight to get them to keep us operating. So I got there at the end when they agreed upon that. But without Harry, I don't know if anyone would be sitting here today, quite frankly. I don't know if that building would ever have been the same.
Yeah,
if they shut it
one
down.
of the things I've heard about the impact of the convention center was that it was, as you say, very disruptive. But then I've also heard that it saved the market, that the market was losing merchants and it wasn't in great condition. You had drips coming through the ceilings. And by doing that work, that might have helped the market.
I think it saved the market in the sense that it brought everything up to code in the sense of building wise. It definitely, under Paul's leadership, I mean, for me, it was unbelievable how the market was on such an upswing purveyor wise, and where the convention center could have hurt in a way is the fact that it brought a lot more tourists or conventioneers in. And in the beginning, I remember customers saying, well, there was a big convention, I'll come back next week, and I'm not going to go there that week. And that's where, we kind of live together now. Everyone's kind of gotten used to it, but there was a little bit of time there where it was a little rough in the sense of if there was a big convention, you knew you weren't doing any business purveyor wise that week.
Right, right. So there's always been that issue of the balance between
there is
regular customers and convention customers.
Yeah.
And you feel that's worked out at this point?
It is.
Pretty
I
much.
mean, COVID is a whole nother an issue, but yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, people got used to, where they park, and the couple that comes in on Saturdays, like I say, that, they park down on Arch Street and they walk down, they know where to find their spots, and they come and they breakfast and shop. And,
Sure.
So definitely people have gotten used to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, Paul, why don't you say a little bit about your journey that got you to the,
Sure.
to
Yeah.
the
Well,
market?
my first experience at the market was as a boy, and my father, who loved coming into Center City, he came in on business. He was a sales representative, and he took me to Pearl's Oyster Bar, and he would order a big bowl of oyster stew. And of course, I wouldn't touch it. At that age, oyster stew, no way. But I would get something else, and then we'd go to Bassett's Ice Cream for dessert.
Right.
And that's how the market sort of got into my heart. And later, as a teenager, I came into Center City on my own once, riding SEPTA, and I went to one of the fish stands, and I knew my father loved fish, and so I bought him a whole fish. I think it was from John Yee.
That's pretty cool.
I bought a whole fish and took it home, and instead of being excited that I bought him a whole fish, he was like, "You didn't have him clean it? You expect me to clean it? Take the head off and everything?" I didn't know. I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
But that's an early memory of the market. What got me into the position of general manager was I learned that the position was opening up. A friend called me and said he saw it in the newspaper.
You were young.
And I was young. I was in my 30s. And
But you had experience.
I had
in
experience, although
public
not
service
in
West
public
Philly.
service, but not directly running a multi-tenant
Sure.
retail center,
Mhm.
right? But I had a reputation already in town, I guess. And I put my name in and I was picked. It was the fall of 2001.
Mhm.
And so I started a month after 9/11 is
Wow.
when I started. And I can remember in those days, people were still really skittish about safety.
Yes.
And anytime there was any kind of alarm or anything that went off in the market, people would scatter for the exits. Over time, that went away,
Mhm.
but people were still very nervous in those days.
Yeah, I understand that. I was thinking that we have another roll of images we could scroll through, because you've talked about Bassett's, you've talked about various merchants, and we've got some images of various merchants in the market and just some scenes in the market. So Alyssa, if you can kind of roll through some of those, and why don't we try and look at them this time and then get your reactions as you see these different images of the market and of merchants in the market. So here's a great one to start with, Termini Brothers.
So, you
Which
know,
yeah.
Termini Brothers, actually, when I first got to the market, if people that are watching are familiar with the market now, that actually was lined up. So when you came into, I was just going to say Ivan Brothers, when you came into Rowan Sons, then they were where my aisle setup is now. They were from the very front entrance down to the back. It used to go before the convention center. The store was a little longer. That's where they were located. They were technically connected to me.
Mhm.
And Old City Coffee was right across the aisle
Right.
where my other side of my store is now.
Yeah,
But yeah, they were dangerous merchants to have next to me, you know?
yeah, very
A
popular.
lot of
Yes.
temptations.
A lot of
And one of
temptations.
the things I wanted to mention about Termini is that in the market mix, and this really speaks to what you were responsible for, there really aren't chains
Correct.
in the market.
Right.
Termini's has a couple different outlets, but I wonder how often you've been approached at the market to let national chains in, and how does that
Quite
dynamic work?
frequently,
Yeah.
we would often get expressions of interest from franchise businesses that wanted to open a location in the market as well as other locations in the region. And we would always say no.
Mhm.
Termini's, their second location, I believe, was and still is in the market. So we did make sort of an exception if there was a well-established merchant in a different part of the city
Mhm.
that wanted to open a branch in the market. Metropolitan Bakery was the same way.
Right.
I could probably think of a couple more.
Well, right here on the wall, we have Delilah's at the terminal.
Although
so
that was her
she-
original.
but then she expanded to some other
Then
places.
she expanded to somewhere else. And that's another thing that would happen is that a merchant would be successful at the market and then branch out from there.
Mhm.
And Delilah's, which is no longer in business, but that was an example.
So we're scrolling through, and can you go back one to DeNix? We were talking about DeNix, and that's Tommy DeNix? Or
Tommy DeNick, and
Yeah.
it's actually Nicolosi,
Uh-huh.
but DeNix is I think the cousin. I forget the exact.
It's a mix of the Claudio and Nicolosi.
Is that what it is?
DeNix.
Because it was their cousins together.
Yes.
see.
Mhm.
And that's probably my most enjoyable times, where going in the morning, we would get in anywhere from 5 to 6 in the morning. Tommy would actually get in at 4 a.m. to start cooking. And in
Okay.
fact, his son Joey still does.
Yeah.
He's there just about every morning starting to cook. But he had a coffee machine there, and he would sell coffee. He would have it to sell for lunch or whatever. He didn't sell coffee. That was just, everybody came over, everybody was
To hang.
BSing, and you just, before the market even started, that's, you stopped at Tommy's and you said hello to everybody.
Yeah.
He's in center court. So.
And I remember one year, DeNix was featured on a national TV show. I think it was on the Food Network, where one of their celebrity hosts was judging the best sandwich in America.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
And it went on all summer long, week by week, and DeNix kept surviving week by week until it finally came down to the finals.
Mhm.
And we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but we had a watch party at the beer garden. This was
Was it Molly
was it Molly Malloy's by
Yeah.
then? Okay, it was
Yeah,
already
it's
Molly Malloy's.
Yeah.
And Tommy and Joey knew what the outcome was going to be, but they were sworn to secrecy. And of course they won because it is the best sandwich in America.
Well,
Probably is.
The funny thing is, I said to them in the beginning, "Oh, we have to have a party. We got to do something for this to go." And he goes, and Joey says to me then, I am not going to have a party because if we don't win this, I am not doing it. Right. And that's what he said. So I don't know, like a couple of weeks later, he goes, Vinny, maybe we'll do something at the bar. We'll have a little party. I'm like, I said, you won. I went like that to him. And he would not say yes or no, but they did know.
Yeah.
And after that, the lines at the Knicks were unbelievable.
Yes.
The same thing happened at Delilah's earlier.
Mhm.
Oprah Winfrey picked Delilah's
Cheese,
macaroni
right?
and
Yeah.
cheese as the best in the country. And the line was out the door. I mean,
Yes.
literally out the door.
Right. And didn't she have some kind of cook-off with Bobby Flay?
She had a cook-off with Bobby Flay, a competition with Bobby Flay that she won.
Yeah.
And that was fun too, because I got to meet Bobby Flay. That was cool.
Who came into the market? The
Yes.
competition was in the
It
market.
was in the market. That's
That's
right.
neat.
Yeah.
Okay. What else can we scroll through and look at some more merchant names and images as we go through? So now we looked at a couple of Asian businesses. There are quite a few in the market. Shaq.
Yes. Little Thai Market got its start with the Thai Singa.
Just a grocery store at the beginning.
Right. And the people who ran it, I think originally had a restaurant in West Philly,
Mhm.
36th and Chestnut or 30, something like that. And they started bringing cooked food in to the stand at the market
Right.
because they didn't have cooking at the market. They would sell it.
Mhm.
And eventually they got a full-time stand.
Mhm.
And it's changed hands a couple times since, but the food is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the roast salmon over rice.
Uh-huh.
It's one of my favorite dishes in the market.
Yeah, and Shanghai Gourmet that we saw before is one of several Chinese restaurants.
Chinese
in the market.
restaurants.
Yeah,
Steve is
which I
the
adore.
proprietor of that, and he's always over the walk every single day making
Yeah.
up. It's
Every
great
day.
food and it's so cheap.
Uh-huh.
It's inexpensive and delicious.
Yeah, yeah. They know me as a regular customer and they know what I
Yeah,
like.
they get to know, and that's true of a lot of the merchants. They get to
Yes.
know what their customers want.
Yeah. Okay. Can we scroll through some more? Okay, Downtown Cheese. So is there more than one cheese merchant there, or
There
are they
used
the
to be-
There
primary?
used to
Jeez.
be Sala Maria,
Sally
but they're no
Marie,
longer there.
And he's no longer with us.
But the Haltemans
Halteman.
stand.
They expanded the cheese now, but Downtown Cheese, Jack is the, I remember when he first came in, his claim to fame, he was probably one of the best cheesemongers in the city.
He knows his cheese
He knows
better
his
than
cheese, yeah. He
almost
really does.
anybody in the city.
I've seen him talk to customers where they
Yeah.
ask him about what kind of cheese would work for such and such thing. And he'll cut little slices, give you pieces, talk it through.
Yes,
He's an expert,
he really
an
is.
Einstein
He is.
of cheese.
I can't wait to tell him that tomorrow. But he was also very colorful though. If you got to know him,
Yeah.
words I won't say here. He was fun to be around, and
Yep.
he always had fun with the customers.
But he's a good example of when the market is at its best. It's when you have somebody like Jack who really knows his niche product,
Mhm.
whether it's produce or meats or cheeses or poultry. That's one of the things that sets a market apart from like a supermarket, because you have the experts selling you the product.
Mhm.
And that's really key to a successful market.
Yeah. Would you aim for a particular kind of mix?
We did. The market is really committed to being a place to buy fresh foods and groceries. So meats, cheeses, produce, poultry, and ingredients for cooking. And that's the core of the market's identity. It also has a large proportion of prepared foods, but we always tried to keep that to a certain level so it wouldn't overwhelm. And that's one of the things Vinny was getting at with the convention center. The convention center would push the market in the direction of prepared foods
Exactly.
and lunch, but we would always try to push back and keep the market appealing. And the market still does this for shoppers to come in and buy for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Or Michael Holohan, the late Michael Holohan,
Yes.
may he rest in peace, from the Pennsylvania General Store, said he would always know that the market was still healthy when people would tell him that they cooked a Saturday night dinner party with all ingredients from the market.
Mhm. Wow. And you certainly can do that quite
Yes, you
easily.
can.
Yes.
Why don't we scroll through and look at a couple more of these images? So Johnny Yee, famous longtime merchant
Eat
there, right?
fish, live longer. Yes.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite signs. Actually, I just love
It's a
that.
great
sign.
neon sign.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a slogan my father told me. We used to go to a place, not the original Snockies, but we used to go to a Snockies that was at 8th and Lombard, and they had a sign there that said, eat fish, live longer, and eat oysters, love longer.
There you go.
Okay. And
So-
this sign has a companion in the market as well. It's not neon, but there's this sign that says "Eat fish, live longer." And then a couple aisles away, there's a very old sign that says "Drink buttermilk, live forever."
That's
So I
right.
always joke with people, buttermilk and fish, it's the best diet for a long life.
There you
Right,
go.
and the buttermilk merchant is still there, or not?
The buttermilk merchant was
His
Spataro.
grandson is
Spataro,
there. So, but it's a cheesesteak place now.
Yes.
It's
Right.
amazing how it's changed. You know, I don't think people want liverwurst sandwiches and buttermilk anymore. So, you know, he evolved.
He
and,
changed with the times,
He
yeah.
changed with the times. And actually, I think Paul had a lot to do with that to keep them going, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you
Worked very closely with them.
Yeah.
You know, old man Dom Spataro
I think
started.
that's going to come up here too. And there's Spataros.
There's Spataro.
Yeah.
Now,
So
that's
the
today,
founder
yes.
of that business was Dominic Spataro, a native of Northeast Philadelphia,
yes, right.
Another-
Close to Roosevelt Mall.
who after World War II came back from the army and took over a sandwich stand in the Reading terminal.
Mhm.
And he made buttermilk. He sold buttermilk and sandwiches, and that evolved into the Spataros that we have today. His son then took it over. We've lost them both, unfortunately.
Yes.
And
And Alex now is.
now Alex, the grandson, runs it.
So do you know how his back the way? Do you remember? Do you know Lenny? Did you know Dominic Senior?
I did. In fact, I made a neon sign. I made several neon signs.
Do you remember
for
how
him.
his back, how he was arched over?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm thinking of another Spataro.
Do you
as the
remember?
senior.
Did
But
you
yeah,
know
I
how
did.
that happened to him?
No, I don't know.
He was trimming a tree at home and fell out of the tree. Went to the hospital. They said, you know, he basically like broke his back, if I'm recalling the story correctly. And he said, I got to get back to the market, and like left and came back and never. That's how he healed, because he had to be in that
He
market.
healed wrong, basically. If
Yeah,
he had been treated properly, he would have been standing upright again.
I
Probably.
would assume that,
Yeah.
but that's because he had to get back
I
to the
remember
market.
hearing
He
that
was-
story.
yeah.
But it shows his level of dedication to
He
the
also
market.
told me another interesting story
Mhm.
that I'll share. And this photo shows it.
Yeah.
The sort of brick tile floor that is throughout the market. I asked old man Spataro about that one time, and he said, "Oh, that was put down during the war. That the market floor used to be a kind of bituminous or asphalt surface." And they used to throw sawdust down to keep it dry because it would sweat in the summertime, because the basement was refrigerated. There was a big giant refrigerator in the basement. So during the war, he said he came back from the army and they had replaced the flooring with that brick tile. So that goes back to the 40s.
And another great story about the basement. So that was, I think it was Harry that told me this story. So before, they didn't have air conditioning. So they made so much ice in the basement for the displays upstairs that in the winter, with no heating, HVAC, or in the winter, it never got above 32 degrees in the market. And in the summer, never got above 65 from the cold radiating up.
Right.
Now, that's
Yeah.
what they used to tell me, but
Yeah.
I mean, and that's without air conditioning, which was
Mhm.
amazing because they made that much ice in the basement there.
Right. You know, the basement is kind of, to me, it was always like a secret grotto. You know,
Yeah.
the customers don't ever get down in that basement, but it's from another era, you know.
It is.
Maybe you could describe what it's like in the basement and going down that elevator, which you probably do every day. I
Every
imagine.
day. Well, we cleaned the basement up actually, if Paul remembers. Remember?
Yes, we spent a lot of time and effort making it, because it was being used more by merchants. As the market's business grew, they needed more storage.
And we went down and literally cleaned it up to.
And turned it into first-class storage, to the point where there was a story about it in the Daily News about the market basement,
yes.
and it was very positive.
Uh-huh.
When I started, the basement wasn't anything to write home about, but it got better and better.
When I first got there, the basement was more or less sealed off
Mhm.
because when they had the rain coming in through the market, they didn't have anywhere to go with the water. So someone came up with the idea, drill a hole and let all the water go to the basement. So
And
the
that's where it's
basement-
at.
And that's where it's at. So pre-construction of the convention center was like dirt type floors down there. And the mosquitoes, when I was there, 2 guys for almost 2 years would go fully clothed down the basement to clean that out. They got it to a point, and then when they reconstructed it, it's now all cement lit, the whole nine
Right.
yards. It's a
Yeah.
whole nother world. But it took quite a long time.
He's
to get
talking
it back
about
in
30
shape.
years ago,
But
not
yes,
now,
not
not now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our audio is not muffled anymore. We still getting reasonable audio. Okay, so here's another image which shows one of the Pennsylvania Dutch merchants,
Yes, that's Smucker's.
Smuckers, exactly.
And that's run
And-
by an old order Amish gentleman
Uh-huh.
named Moses Smucker.
Yeah,
By old order, I mean he pretty much keeps all the ancient traditions of the Amish, the clothing and the way he lives his life. He doesn't drive an automobile.
Mhm.
But Moses is a character.
yeah,
Yes, he
And
is.
his business, he opened this business in 2009,
Mhm.
taking over a butcher stand from a prior merchant. And he Moses sold a very successful business he had had for years, making harnesses for horses. And he had a lot of celebrity clients, including, for example, the Budweiser Clydesdales.
Yep.
I don't think he would drink beer, but he made harnesses for the Clydesdales of Budweiser. He also made harnesses for celebrities, including, he told me, Michael Jackson.
Mhm.
But he decided to have a career change, just like Vinny did, right?
yeah, yeah.
And wanted to come into the market. And he and his wife, Susie, still come into the market almost every day.
Every day.
And they're driven in. They don't.
Right. They have a
Yes.
driver.
Mhm. And that's probably true for some other.
Yeah. Paul
Yeah.
Fisher is
Yeah.
that way from the candy shop.
Yep.
And there are some of the so-called Amish or PA Dutch who are actually Mennonite,
Yes.
and they have more quote unquote modern sensibilities. So they're allowed to drive a vehicle
Right.
and use a cell phone.
Yeah, I've always been interested in Byler's donuts partly because they're so good and partly because they have this incredible long line
Yes.
of people waiting there. And I've done a lot of neon in the market, and I should mention that at one point they asked me, could I do a neon sign for them? But, the Pennsylvania Dutch are known as plain people. Well, we didn't take that into account. And my helper and I, we designed this very elaborate and we thought really beautiful sign, picturing donuts and some of the other things that they were selling. And I remember Mr. Byler took one look at it and he went, I don't like it.
Hey, you said it just like him.
He did.
He did say, I
I
don't
can
like
hear
it.
him saying that.
And
yeah.
if you look at what he ended up getting, he got a very plain,
Right.
hand-painted sign, which fit in with the whole Pennsylvania Dutch.
Kind of reflecting
Sensibility,
their
yeah.
values. Yeah.
Exactly. So
right.
I was the one who was out of tune, because I didn't understand what he
Yeah.
was really
No, it's a
looking
good,
for.
great story.
Do you know
Yeah.
what they would do on the weekends, the Bylers or Alvin? Is they would have rodeos at their house on
Yes.
the weekends.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, they talk about true. They loved,
And
Yeah.
if he's watching, I have to say something about Jonathan Best on the right.
Okay.
They came in 07. They had a store at the Chestnut Hill Farmers Market, and we had a vacancy there. That was Natural Connection. Remember that?
Yeah.
They were like a vitamin and health food
That's
store,
right.
but they moved to Georgia. So Jonathan Best came in with Dave, the owner and founder. He named it for his son, Jonathan. He said, Jonathan's the best. I'm going to call it Jonathan Best.
There you go.
And it's a grocery store.
I didn't
It's
know
a,
that
Yeah.
one.
it
Terrific
fills a
name.
niche in the market. And they closed the Chestnut Hill store, and now this is their main store.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we scroll through and see what else we've got?
This might be the last one.
Okay.
Oh,
And can you explain that one, Paul, with the?
Oh, this is all Vinny. This is the Harvest Festival.
so that's my daughter, my youngest daughter, who's hey, in 3 months she'll be a physical therapist, or she'll be graduating from Drexel.
Congratulations.
Uh-huh.
But she's that has to be what 17? How many years ago were you
We,
there?
we started the festival the year I started, so
Yes.
01.
In 01. So we actually, my brother and I we were trying to think of something different to do for the market. We wanted to more or less say thank you to the customers. And we're really good friends with Shady Brook Farms, the haunted hay rides
Bucks County.
in Bucks County. And like all our corn all summer long comes from there. And, Paul and Dave, they're just, even Dave said they're such a great family. But, we were like, hey, they do these hay rides. I wonder what it'd be like to have a hay ride around the market. So I did the hay ride that first
Oh,
year,
yeah.
didn't I? Yeah.
And every year since.
Yeah, and except last year, but
Right,
we
true.
so my brother and I never forget. We're like, we're going to do this. We're going to go all out. We're going to do a harvest festival. You weren't even there yet, I think, right? You
I
started
had
a
just
few
started,
days.
but you had planned it.
Yeah, beforehand.
Right.
So my brother and I were so crazy. I remember we filled up our truck, which held 10 or 12 skids. We needed all this hay I had to go load it too, from front to back, floor to ceiling.
Mhm.
The street was covered in hay. We separated the street. We went up, we borrowed a hay ride from those guys. We got I forget whose tractor we borrowed. It was probably their tractor too. And it really turned out to be a great success. I mean, people had lots of fun, and
Yeah.
it was the hardcore regulars really didn't like it because I took parking away that day
On Filbert
on
Street.
Filbert Street, but a lot of people really enjoyed just seeing a little bit of the country in the city.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
and that makes me think of other market traditions, other festivals. We were talking before about the electric train setup at
Right.
Christmas.
And the Pennsylvania Dutch Festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was
yeah.
every August, and it was organized by Alvin, I think, and Junior Ash
Dave Esch, yeah, they all.
and Dave Esch. And that was a 3-day festival. The first 2 days, Thursday and Friday, would be inside. And then on Saturday, it would go outside. And they would bring in farm animals from Lancaster County, pigs, chickens, a cow, horses. And for few years, we had a farm parade where we would take the animals on a parade down Market Street, which
Mhm.
really harks back to the market's origins, because the markets used to be in the middle of Market Street,
Yeah,
running all the way from Front Street all the way to 12th. So we kind of were reviving that tradition. And one year when we had the farm parade,
You rode a horse through the market, I remember,
we
right?
took the animals through. We were hoping the health department wasn't watching on Saturday morning, and we took the animals right through the center of the market, and people were amazed. But that same year, I think, one of the animals got away. It was a goat,
mhm.
and it got loose in Center City on a Saturday in August. And we're kind of panicked. What's going to happen to this goat? And one of the young Amish workers, Roger Miller, who is now a merchant at Miller's Twist, chased after the goat. The goat started to go down a subway entrance, turned around, came back up, kept running, and Roger finally lassoed the goat or caught the goat in the middle of the fountain at Love Park, and carried the goat back. And I'll never forget him walking into the festival again, they're both dripping wet, carrying the goat. Roger is dripping wet, and we all cheered. I was so relieved.
Yeah. There are also annual events for the market. I've seen you in tuxedos
Oh,
dressed up
right,
for
the
those.
party
kinds
for
of
the
things.
market. Do you want to
Now,
talk about that?
Is this one of them here that we have up on the screen here? Party for the market? Can you make that any bigger? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so that looks like,
So we took a little respite from it. So I remember in the very beginning, we started these parties to actually help pay for the legal bills to keep the market open that Harry Oakes so valiantly fought for. Like it was, we ran up a huge bill, and it was such a great success. We kept it going for a little bit.
It was called the
And-
Valentine of the Market because
Valentine of the
around
Market.
Valentine's Day.
Yes, and they were lots of fun. I mean, I was really new. It was my first year there, and I remember like kind of getting roped in and helping out as much as I could. But it was a great event. But it stopped for a while, and then Paul, you were the one actually, I believe, who wanted to bring it back, wasn't it? You who
We
started again?
restarted it in 2011,
2011.
and it was really the suggestion of a woman named Becky Stoloff,
That's right.
who some of the viewers may recall. She was a civic activist, lived in Society Hill. She was the president of the Reading Terminal Market Preservation Fund,
That's right.
and she recommended that we restart the Valentine, so we did in 2011.
And for us, we're all anything for the market. That's the way we feel. My whole family feels the same way. Back in the beginning parties, I actually used to like to play music and DJ. I cleared our floor before you, and I made it a dance floor in the produce store back then. And never forget, I went to one of the meetings and I stuck my head and I said, "Hey, I have an idea. I used to do this. We used to clear the floor and make a dance floor." And it was Judge Klein, I guess.
Judge Klein from
He
the
was a-
Reading Terminals.
I love that idea, so we ended up doing it. And now every year we more or less, it's a lot of work to empty that store of everything.
It amazes me every time I see it. It goes from selling produce all day long to a dance floor at night. All the produce is cleared out.
yeah, and who are the Reading Terminals?
So the Reading Terminals were and still are a jazz band that started in the 80s.
Yep.
And it was Judge Dick Klein, a sitting common pleas court judge, Councilman Schwartz, Ed Schwartz, I think.
Mhm.
And then it was an architect originally whose name I can't remember. And then in the 90s, they kind of left. But in 2001, when I started, I remembered that they used to do that. And so I reached out to, I think it was Ed, and I said, "Do you want to come back?" And he said, "Sure." So the Reading Terminals came back, and I'll never forget the first time they played. It was 2001 or two, probably two, and they brought in Thatcher Longstreth,
Yeah.
the famous former city councilman. He was famous for always wearing Argyle socks.
Right.
And he would sing with the Reading Terminals in the old days.
Yeah.
Well, so I said, Councilman, do you want to come back? And we're going to bring the Reading Terminals back. He said, sure. So by then he was pretty old and feeble. Unfortunately, he was getting up in years.
Yeah.
He needed assistance getting to center court. And when he sat down on a stool, and everybody got situated, he belted out the song Makin' Whoopee like he was a 25-year-old man.
Well, he's an old Princeton guy.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And in his honor, to this day, I still wear Argyle socks almost every day. I'm wearing them today.
Right. Right.
And he was a Republican. I'm not a Republican.
Uh-huh. Yeah. We have a couple pictures here of older photos from the terminal.
What is that? Is that
I don't know if
Pearl's
that's the Oyster Bar.
It says William Evans Seafood Special.
Oh, it was the predecessor of Pearl's.
Yeah.
It was a seafood restaurant that was at one of the edges of the market because you can see windows there.
Yep.
I don't remember, well, I don't personally remember, but I'm not sure which part of the market they were in. It could be where Pearl's is still today. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know, one of the things about seafood restaurants in the market is it gives you a sense or a taste of old Philadelphia to some extent because you have dishes like snapper soup.
Yes.
You know, so 50, 100 years ago, people were downing snapper soup in Philadelphia. It's not something that you see on menus
No.
typically anymore.
Or fried oysters and chicken salad. That's
Oysters
another.
and chicken salad.
That's
Yeah.
another Philadelphia delicacy.
So that's all from the Thatcher Longstreth era of
That's
Philadelphia.
right. Some of
Yeah.
those people are probably eating, you know, snapper soup, pepper pot soup,
Pepper pot, yeah.
or fried oysters and chicken salad.
Yeah, you know, one of the other, well, I guess actually the oldest merchant in the market who's been there continuously since the market opened would be the ice cream stand. Isn't that right?
Bassett's. Yeah.
Yeah, Bassett's.
They actually think that he was the original lease signer.
Yes.
In fact.
They're the only one that dates back to the very beginning of the market. And they used to sell cheese too. The sign still says cheese up there.
Oh, does it? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And they made all their ice cream in the basement.
that's right. Until the 80s.
Oh,
But then I think
did
they
it that
moved to
way?
my neighborhood, to Fairmount. and
Right. They bought what was Potts ice cream.
Yeah,
And that was in your neighborhood.
yeah,
And they still sell, as far as I know, they still sell Potts to restaurant clients.
mhm,
It's and then Bassett's is sort of their marquee retail product.
yeah.
They also were one of the first Philadelphia food manufacturers to sell in China, and they still do.
No kidding.
They sell Bassett's ice cream in China.
Michael Strange is a cousin, I think, that took
Yes.
over.
Mhm.
I was just on the phone with him today, in fact. Yeah, he's such a smart man. I mean, anything he touches, I feel like he just goes to the
If he's
top.
watching, congratulations. He just
Yes.
got married.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah, he
realize that.
did.
I knew well, it was supposed to have at the market. He was supposed to have the wedding there,
Because
but
of COVID.
yeah, I
They
didn't
couldn't,
realize
yeah.
it happened then.
You know, one thing that this makes me think of is that so many of the businesses you would call mom and pop businesses, they're family businesses, and really have a kind of general philosophic question about those kinds of businesses and the future, not just of the market, but the future of eating food, of buying food in the United States. You know, the market has to compete now
Right.
with delivery services, with calling up your supermarket and they will just bring the food over. They've got shoppers there. So how do you see that? You know, how do you see the future and where the market is going to,
Well,
how that all shake out for the market?
right now, you know, we use Mercado.
Mm-hmm.
It's an online delivery service platform, and you know, I think in the beginning when it started, it was going smoothly, and then when the pandemic hit,
Mhm.
my God, everything was closed, and even all the delivery services were shut down, and we were still trying to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we grew too fast, too quick. Like literally overnight, we went from we would have 5 orders to literally at one point we could do about 200 a day. Like our store can get them together, but the market couldn't get them delivered fast enough. So we would have it ready, but there wasn't enough drivers to deliver it. And that's what happened to us. It fell
Yeah.
out, but we literally would have 1,000. I went like this because we have a dashboard on the computer I remember through the pandemic, I would have a backlog of over 1,000 orders,
Wow.
people waiting for food.
Yeah.
How do I see that going today?
Well, beyond, let's project beyond COVID and look a year or two in the future, and you potentially are going to have customers who are going to want to come to the market and have that personal interaction. And then perhaps there are more and more people in American society, in Philadelphia, all over the country, who are not going to go shopping, who are going to go through these convenience-oriented ways of doing their shopping. And that sort of frightens me personally. But
you and I both, I never thought
Yeah.
anyone would order food online. Personally, going into this business, the market's always going to have some sort of digital presence now.
yeah,
And we're not the best at it yet because we're mom and pops.
Yeah.
And there's 80 of us, and you have a great corporation that runs the market, and they all donate their time. So to get this all figured out, it takes a lot of work. Paul will tell you it's not easy to go between both sides, right, Paul? It's,
Right. I mean, yeah, we started with another delivery service before I left, and
Instacart, was it maybe?
Instacart, right? And that ultimately didn't work out so well, and that's why you switched to Mercado.
Mercado, and Mercado's, they're really working hard at it. And right now, I don't think they're going anywhere, but it's something we're always going to have. But, when I look at the new supermarkets today that are gorgeous, huge, beautiful. I mean, I don't think of our store looking great right now because of COVID and the way we have it set up. But,
yeah,
normally it's a whole totally different display when I don't need to keep all that space. But I look at all these new supermarkets, and I quite frankly think they're modeling out after what the Reading Terminal has been doing for the 30 years I've been there.
Certainly some truth to that, yeah.
They have a beer garden, they have
coffee bars.
and they
Yeah.
have places you can go eat. They're doing exactly what we've been doing forever. It's my
Yeah.
forever, at
Right.
least,
Yeah, they want to be places where you can hang out, just like you could hang out at the
Yeah.
market.
So
And sometimes it's hard to hang out at the market, putting COVID aside, because it's so popular, it gets so crowded. It's hard to get a seat sometimes. You buy something and you want to sit down and eat it, and you have lines. You're fighting for space sometimes, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's an experience. It's an
Exactly.
experience, a people experience. My favorite day to be at the market still is the day before Thanksgiving. I just, everybody who's there is there to shop for the meal the next day. And we used to, when the market opened at 8, we would stand at the entrances handing out shopping bags, reusable shopping bags.
yes.
And just the atmosphere on the day before Thanksgiving, to me, it's always it's what the market should be. It really represented that, and still does.
Yeah.
Up until, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, we used to, so again, I told everyone I'm the youngest out of 10. And my one brother, I had one brother who lived in Florida, and it was kind of like a little reunion for us because my Tootsie and Tony had the Salad Express.
That's his siblings.
My siblings, I'm sorry. And I feel like everybody knows us. That's all.
Right, they
And
probably
we're
do.
talking to, our family here. But
Right.
we would literally on that day, I called up my brother one time. I said, you want to come down and just help out? And I flew him down. So like the day before Thanksgiving for us was, even my whole family was completely, all 10 of us were in the building at all times working and helping. And even when he wasn't there, my only other brother who really didn't work with us worked around the corner. So he was in at one time. You could have 9 of us in that building. Well, you were tired
A
of us.
real
I'm sure.
family affair.
Yeah.
I never got tired of the Ivines. Never. Such good people. Seriously. Such good people.
Yeah. So, we're approaching 8 o'clock now. So
No way. That can't be true.
The time has flown by. Unfortunately, we had a couple of technical difficulties, but so there's a couple ways we could go now. We could take some questions. We also have some slides of the restoration of the exterior sign, but
I think we should talk about that
you want to
because it's neon. It's neon, right?
Well, yeah, but this is I'm sort of sick of neon. And I live neon every day.
Well, we're in the Neon Museum, Len.
You are in the museum, I know. All right, so why don't we go to and look at the exterior sign and go through a couple of those slides, and then we'll take some questions. But I just want to say that the sign was on the 5th floor of the Reading Railroad head house.
Right there, you can
And you see an
see
image of the
on
head
the front,
house.
on the Market Street front. That's
Yeah.
where it used to be.
So you see a little ledge there. That's where the sign was, exactly.
There you
And then it was removed, and Paul came up with the brilliant idea of, after it had been removed and put in storage, of bringing it back. So these are some newspaper clippings where, again, you can see the sign.
The
on
original
ledge.
location, yeah.
So what was your inspiration for wanting to get
Well,
the sign restored?
I had seen photos like that. And I'm aware also of Pike Place Market in Seattle has the big clock.
Yeah.
And it says Market Center or something like that. And that's an iconic image for that market.
Yeah.
And I thought, gee, if we could find that sign and put it back up, that could be an iconic symbol of this market. So who did I call but Len Davidson?
Yeah.
I said, Len, remember that sign that used to be on the front of the market building and the terminal? And of course, Len not only remembered it, but he knew where it was.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll take you, we'll go look at where it is now. So it was in a
So 13th and
Spruce.
Locust, Spruce, yeah.
in an old redevelopment authority garage. There it is.
Yep.
That's
In the
where it
garage,
was,
yep.
in the garage, in pieces, all the original
neon was
neon
broken.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said to Len, what would it cost to fix this up? And he gave me a quote. And I was like, wow. I didn't say this to him, but I thought that's a really good price.
Now you tell me.
Right. And so we raised the money, and Len reassembled it and put in new tubing. That I think you could figure out what the original colors were, right?
Yeah, because we had some broken pieces of glass
Okay, yeah,
to go
so-
from. Yeah.
And so then we went to dedicate it in November of 2006, and we came up with the idea of having 3 of the original merchants or the older merchants represented to flip the switch. So we made this fake big giant electrical switch. And we
It might
also
still be in the office upstairs.
Oh, is it?
Might be.
And we also invited the late Bob Venturi,
Yeah.
the famous architect, to be the keynote speaker, and he agreed. And so we had a countdown: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Flip the switch, and the sign turned on. It was a great
Yeah.
ceremony.
And here's Bob Venturi on the right.
There's
Yeah,
Bob Venturi,
one of our most famous architects.
probably Philadelphia's greatest 20th century architect.
Could
Yeah.
well be.
But he loved the market. He was a Philadelphian. He loved neon.
He did.
And so he took to the idea right away and gave a great talk.
Yeah, I enjoyed that myself. Absolutely. So I think this would be a great time to shift over to questions that might be on the chat. We can't really see the chat, but hopefully Alyssa can give us some questions there.
Yeah, okay. So first, actually, on this topic, somebody was wondering when the original sign was made, that
The neon
where
sign.
does the date from? Yeah.
Yeah, I was told it was post World War II, but I can't really pinpoint it. I know from the housings, from the construction of it, that it was like other signs I've restored in the 1950s. Some of the signs in the 40s had a little bit different kinds of housings, but there was this transitional period. So I would estimate it's late 40s, early 50s, something like that.
Okay, and let's see.
And we should probably restate the questions again, because I don't know that Alyssa's going to be as well heard.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that.
Someone asked, well, what stores went out of business during COVID in the market? What
Yeah, so the
impact
question
of
is
COVID?
about the impact of COVID and what stores have gone out of business. You might want to talk about that generally. in
Yeah, you
terms
probably
of
have a better
impact of
handle on
COVID.
that.
So
Let's hope it's a short list.
it's a few businesses did go out of business. One of them being my sister. She had and my brother. They had the Salad Express there,
That's right.
and my sister just took over. My one brother retired, and my sister took over, and the financial impact was just too great. So she decided to go out.
And it's a salad bar, which is kind of
And
hard to
it's rough
run.
to come back,
Yeah,
yeah.
hard to come back from.
So that hurt
Yeah.
in the sense of not just hurt, but my heart. But
Mm-hmm.
then Tubby Olive decided to, they had a Newtown store that was doing very well. They decided the business wasn't good enough there, so they left. But they're still in business in Newtown. Condiment,
Right? They came in
Actually,
after I left, but yeah, they
they
closed.
decided to close their doors. And I think was that it, 3 of them? I think that was the 3 of them. And then Amy is actually retiring this year, but I think it's actually a true retirement. I think
Yeah.
she ran a great little business,
Amy's Place.
Amy's Place, and had all the kitchen gadgets.
Mhm.
In fact, I think this is one of her last weeks now, but that was more true retirement. I'm sure if business was great, she may have stayed on, but she's a smart lady. She you know, she's leaving gracefully, and
Right.
she's an amazing woman. So
So it sounds
She
like
had
the
been
vast
there-
majority
have survived.
Yeah.
Amy has been there since 1994,
yes,
and it's a true retirement, like
she
you say.
took over
Yeah.
from Ken Foster, right?
She took over the space, but she had been there previously
Okay.
across the market.
And I believe there have been donations to the market during this period. There was a lot of sales of gift certificates for the market. I mean, it
So-
seems like Philadelphia tried to rally around the market to some extent.
You know, it was almost so it was a big part of that, trying to help raise money. The association, or our glue, I call her Cindy,
Yes.
really was a big part. That's her background, is in the nonprofit world.
Cindy Hart Griffith.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Ann Mintz is another woman who, did you hire Ann?
I hired Ann, then she left, but she's come back.
And then we talked
Yeah.
to the market about bringing Ann. She is a grant writer,
Mhm.
and the two of them worked up some great ideas with Al Nazaroba and the board. You know, at first they were shy of trying to fundraise, but I think they grasped it. You know, we raised in GoFundMe about 520,000 between all the different donations,
Mhm.
which they're going to be giving back to merchants, because we're still having issues
course,
now, but
yeah.
you know, they're going to not give cash, but like to help with rent and everything.
Yeah,
And, you know, they're still working hard. I mean, there's some wonderful foundations out there that sound like they're really going to be helpful to us. Paul is an unbelievable manager, unbelievable. Anuj Gupta came in after him,
Mhm.
and he had to leave during the pandemic because his opportunities were so great. He always wanted to, I think he wants to run for office in the future, but
We'll see. Yeah, could
we'll
be.
see. But what a great man, in the sense that he left and he didn't leave though.
Mhm.
So he has been instrumental trying to help raise funds with the board and everyone else. And it's just, again, it's another reason to show, like,
The market
they were
gets into
there.
your blood. It really does.
You're gone how many years?
6.
And he still loves it, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And we should give a shout out to Annie Allman, the current general manager.
And she's killing it right now.
Yeah.
She is. She's doing a great
She
job.
really seems like she's on the ball, and you know, she's starting in a very challenging time,
to
but
say the least.
she
yeah.
doesn't seem to be intimidated by it.
No, not at all.
No.
I really like her.
More questions? What else?
Yeah, well,
Is-
somebody had asked,
Mhm.
and maybe we already went into it, but to speak more about the original market, and I can
Mhm.
pull up some of those construction shots if you want to kind of. walk
You
through
could,
those.
yeah. Paul is
You mean
something
going
of a
back to the
historian.
1890s?
Yeah.
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 Well, so I can give a quick thumbnail sketch of that. So I mentioned that the food markets in the city were originally in the middle of Market Street. That's why Market Street's called Market Street. In 1859, up until 1859, it was illegal for food markets to be privately owned. They were publicly, like a public utility, like the water department or the gas works. The markets were public. But in 1859, after a big battle, the city council decided to allow private ownership of markets. And so 2 markets went up on this block of Market Street. One was called the Franklin Market and one was called the Farmers Market. And they lasted about 30 years until about 1890. And then the Reading Railroad decided to build a station on this location. And the market said, well, no, you can't do that. We're here. And the public rallied around them and forced the Reading Railroad to incorporate the markets into their new building, which you're now seeing on your screen, not at Market Street, but back behind Filbert Street. So that portion of this structure was built first so that the merchants could be moved into the new market, which is still the space that Vinny and everybody operates in now.
Yeah.
And then they finished the station around them. So the market that you visit today really traces its roots in a way back to the founding of the city and the markets on Market Street. There's a continuous line of heritage that far back to the 1690s.
So the trains came in and, well, they don't run anymore, but they came in above the market and
Right.
and people got off at the head house.
The commuter trains would cross Arch Street on a bridge to the upper level,
Mhm. Here's a
which is where the
construction
station
site.
was.
Yeah.
And you can see that in these photographs. And then in 1984, that's when what's now called Jefferson Station opened and replaced this. And the trains were rerouted into Jefferson Station. And that big old train shed upstairs was left vacant,
Mhm.
since incorporated into the convention center.
Right.
So, if you noticed if you were in the market back then, some of the stalls had more or less like fake roofs. If you remember Harry Oaks
Yes, like a little
had a
structure.
suspension ceiling.
Mhm, yeah.
They did that. I remember Harry telling me they did that because when the trains would come in, the dust would shake from the roof
No
and come
kidding.
down and settle. So
And there's food right there.
yeah,
right?
so a lot of the merchants would put these little fake roofs to hold the dust, you know.
Mhm.
So it's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
keep it off the food.
Um,
More questions?
If you want to go, we've got someone requesting, Len, that you speak more to some of the neon signs that you've worked on in the market.
You know, neon
The question is, what
yeah.
signs has
Hasn't he
Len worked
worked
on in the market? What
Yeah,
neon signs has Len worked on?
Well,
in the market.
I've worked on numerous signs in the market. You've seen photos of a bunch of them. Profi's was one that comes to mind.
The Crepe
by,
Place.
by George, and obviously Vinny's Place, Spataro's, the Knicks. I can go on and on. You know, when neon started falling out of favor, perhaps 20 years ago, and LED started coming in, I had an active neon business, but I didn't have as many customers as I had. I used to get constant phone calls in the earlier days, in the 80s, people who wanted neon, but the market kept me alive. You know, the market was really my best customer. And, you know, Paul was in the market at that later time. You started there
In 2001.
Yeah. So I did a lot of work with Paul, and the market was very good for me. And I really enjoyed those jobs because, they weren't corporate jobs. They were jobs for mom and pop businesses.
Right.
So you'd get to design something in sort of a folk art way, which is what I really like, because it would partly be my ideas, but it would be partly the merchants' ideas. And we'd work together and come up with something.
And we would encourage merchants to include neon.
Yeah.
And I would send them to Len, and they would work out a design.
Yeah, but I don't know how long that's going to last at this point. I was in the market the other day. I don't want to mention the particular merchant, but I saw a fake neon sign. They've gotten very good with LEDs, and they can make them look like neon now. So,
and it's cheaper probably.
It's probably a bit cheaper. It's also a matter of craftsmanship. You need two vendors. You need very skilled people to put together a neon sign. LEDs don't take the same kind of skill level, but there is this is something that I could talk about ad nauseum, which is really not about the terminal, but there's a revival of neon to some extent because of interest in neon from artists. Artists are incorporating more and more neon into their work. But in terms of just mom and pop stores, storefronts, we don't see as much of it in Philadelphia as we used to.
I remember how when we asked you to do our neon, all of our fruits in the window.
Yeah.
I mean,
love
like,
that, John.
I felt like you were like a little kid in a candy store.
I
You were
really
so
was.
excited, drawing up, and with the hand sketches come, what do you think of this, Vinny? And we can make this. And it was, he really went to town. And, we loved it so much. We've recently, in the past few years, like I guess that 3 years ago, rebranded ourselves. And we have all these fruits, but this was all inspired from the neon signs that you made. That Iovine Brothers sign, they used to
That's
say
an old
Rowan Sons Produce, and you put Iovines in there for us.
Yeah.
And that is actually, I don't even know when that dates back to, but
Yeah, that's relatively simple. But then when we started doing work on the windows, there were 14 different windows.
Geez, I didn't even realize there's 14 of them.
There were 14 of them, and we put fruits and vegetables in each one. And then we did a very elaborate animation, that really was the kid in the candy store part for me. So what happens is that for about a 2-minute period, once on the hour, these fruits and vegetables animate. They go off and on, and they dance, and they turn off and on in various kinds of sequences. And it's really one of our proudest things that probably, second only to reviving that early 1950s
Sign.
Sign. It was a wonderful thing to do this job for Vinny.
Yeah, we enjoyed it too.
But yeah, I've done lots of hoagies and cheesesteaks and, things for many, many merchants there. I wish I was younger and I could still do it, but I do have a very capable helper in Sam Contarato, and he does.
And you've got a
some of that.
museum to run.
And now I've got a museum to run. Exactly. So I don't know how much longer we want to hold these folks. It's 10 after 8. How about one final question? You got another one for us, Alyssa?
Yeah, that essentially wraps it. We had someone asking if there's a video of you making a neon sign, which we could probably direct them to somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, a question about us making neon signs. We do have videos of that. But anything else for
Right.
the two guys from Northeast Philly?
The only question that I see here left is more about sort of like post-COVID, post-vaccination protocol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether the terminal has something in mind for those who are vaccinated getting in. But I don't know
Yeah,
if
so
that's
there's a
something-
question about post-COVID and how the terminal is looking to be run as people are getting vaccinated and as more people finally have their vaccinations. Could you speak to that?
So of course we're very mindful of masks, and I know I don't have it on right now. We're apart, and I'm fully vaccinated, and I think everyone here. But
Yeah.
The market's very concerned about the mask wearing and the cleanliness, and the center court. We built out little individual stalls so people can sit down and eat comfortably and be safe. But the one great thing is the Reading Terminal, Mark Squilla, our representative, and he's also on the board for the Reading Terminal Market Corporation. He was able to get us vaccinated. So they worked it out because we've never closed for COVID. We were there every single day, and we're on the front lines almost. Not, of course, the front lines, the doctors and nurses, but we were there serving the public. So
Essential workers.
Essential workers. So he was truly instrumental. And then our one, Layla.
Yes,
was-
Layla, the great Layla.
The great Layla.
In the office.
She's home right now visiting family, but she really, Mark said, here, you can do this. Layla took off and ran. And, I believe they're just, I would venture to say 90% of the employees and owners are there are probably vaccinated now because of
It's
it.
fantastic.
We're lucky enough, you know what I mean, that not all of us fit into that criteria in the sense of age or whatever, but
Because
But
you're
you're serving
professional.
because we're there,
Yeah.
our profession, we got it. So they,
Yeah.
between the cleanliness, the fact that they really worked on getting everyone vaccinated, I think they're definitely thinking the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Vinny and thank Paul for being here with us. I want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to mention that we are going to be trying our protocols out on April 15th. We're going to be open as kind of a soft opening here in the Neon Museum. So I hope some of you will.
Come
Join
see it.
us
It's
for that.
amazing. It's amazing. It
Yeah,
really
really
is
is great.
amazing. If
Thank
you
you.
love neon, it's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. And thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
Okay.
See you later.
Good night.
So long.